Peace.
Islam, okay, you hear me?
Islam, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, just doing a quick impromptu. You know what I'm saying? Just build on real quick. Just real quick. And by the way, I got this. I got a replay on this one, so this can actually be recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, but just doing a quick build. Just had the Sunday school class. Just left that not too long ago. We had one from 3 to 7 today at the temple, and we were building on a few things. We were building heavily on chapter 1. Matter of fact, the question was asked by one of the sisters in the temple, "What is creative fate?" So we went into that. And another sister had asked a question about the soul. You know, it says in chapter 1 that creative fate gave to spirit man a soul that he may function on a plane of soul. So the question was asked, what exactly is the function? I mean, so we went into that as well. And so I can kind of Islam.
The part towards the end, I heard everything you said, except for that last part.
Oh, the last part about the soul. Yeah. So basically, the question was asked, what is
Speaking
the function of the soul?
Yeah, is that you were saying something about the function of the soul, like exactly that?
Yes. What exactly is that function that it speaks about in chapter 1? Because it says, that, the question is asked, basically, say creative fate gave to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul. Well, question is asked, what is that how do you function? What are the actual functions of the soul on the plane of soul? You know what I'm saying? Being that we kind of always hear about, just to conclude, we always hear about the physical, you know what I'm saying? What we do on a earthly plane. But go ahead, Mo. Go ahead, brother.
Islam, I'm just making sure you can hear me. Like, 'cause I ain't like where I'm at. I don't have strong service. I am connected to the Wi-Fi. However, the function. Would you consider the function to be the same thing as an action?
Yeah. In many ways, it actually is. So, what I did was, the answer is actually in the chapter, and so I kind of went into that. So what I'm going to do while I'm here, I'm going to pretty much go into my book so I can read it out straight from there, because it does deal with the action. It has to be some type of activity as far as when you're doing functionality of the soul. So where I started from was the part where it says in chapter 1, man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast, but he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold, but let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffer on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. When he has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served his purpose well. It will fall and will be no more. So one of the things I pointed out is that in chapter 1, it specifies that man is perfected by the things he suffers, not only on the plane of flesh, but also on the plane of soul. So one of the things that you have to realize is that on the plane of soul, you are going to experience a degree of suffering. You have to experience that because that's what it says. That's how you are perfected. You know what I'm saying? Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life. So that suffering comes, it's described a little more when it says, then he will stand untrammeled on the plane of soul, where he must complete his victory, right? So the victory implies that there has to be a conflict. There has to be a competition or some type of strife for you to be victorious in. You get what I'm saying? And that ties back to the statement, without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. So, and then it goes on and says, unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul. There he must overcome, yea, overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light. There is no failure for the human soul, for Allah is leading on and victory is sure. So the point of that is that when you are in this, after you give up this garb of flesh, right? This carnal body, and you function in your full capacity on the plane of soul. When I say full capacity, is that you actually function on the plane of flesh, soul, and spirit simultaneously, because you have all three aspects of you that are active. In other words, you are a spirit, so your spirit, part of that spirit vibrates and is still connected on the spirit plane. Likewise, the soul and as well as the body. Each part of you has this vibration and its activities in those corresponding planes, and those planes are not necessarily above you or below you. They occupy the same space and time, just different frequencies, occupying the same space and time. Kind of like if you took a cable wire, and that wire carries all the different channels of what other stations you have, but it's still within that small wire. If that, you know what I'm saying, just put it in that context. So the activity of the soul, I gave the example of this, right? As far as with the conflict and the victories. For example, your foe, your carnal foe, the carnal thing that you may need to conquer is food. So in other words, you may have a particular food that is not healthy for you that you just can't let go. You can't let go of donuts. You know what I'm saying? Just, be facetious about that. And no matter what you do, that's your fight. You know what I'm saying? Just give just an example. And after you conquer that foe and you get to the point of transitioning from the physical to the spiritual, or should I say from the plane of flesh to the plane of soul, your foe, your conflict may not be that physical thing. It's no longer the physical thing, because that food is a coarse object that you intake. So it no longer exists on the plane of soul because it has no purpose. But you're vibrating on another frequency now, more so than on the lower frequency. You no longer vibrate on the lower frequency. So your foe may be the emotions that may be attached to that, or to anything else, like grief. Grief is a spray, if you will, or a byproduct of your lower self. You know what I'm saying? Certain emotions become those things that hold you back from becoming one with Allah, because you get locked into that emotional state that deals with attachment. from desire to attachment. And if you can overcome that, as well as it could be, like I said, that's just one aspect. Grief is another one thing. Fear could be another thing. Those things that are subtle, that are not necessarily, you can't necessarily quantify at that point with something physical. Like you can grieve and not shed a tear. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not a physical thing, but it still exists. It's still a real thing. And that's something that emanates within the soul and from the soul. So you may have to conquer that, among other things. And your whole point of having the soul, the body, etc., is to be perfected. To perfect it through this experience, to be back one with Allah, to be back one on the highest plane of life. You know what I'm saying? That's why it says to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father God Allah. So we go through these experiences to recognize that there is really only one reality, the ultimate reality, which is Allah. And you, man himself, is not the body nor the soul, but he is a spirit and a part of Allah. So you go through that function to realize that you are not that. You are not these emotions. You're not this. You're not the clothes. You're not just your skin, your hair. You know what I'm saying? Your identity. That's not you. In essence, you are spirit. So that's why I was explaining to the sister in that context, and she was asked. She said that because in the context of she feels like she's failing in her test, when in reality there is no failure for the human soul. You as long as you're on this path, the very fact that we are on this path where we can even see that there is a way to become one with Allah, or the fact that we even have the desire, because you have people that don't even have that desire to become one with Allah, you know what I'm saying? Then you are on your path to perfection. It's just a matter of when. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. You have to fight your foes. That goes without saying. But as long as you keep focus of that, you won't fail. It's just a matter of the rate at which you progress. And it really doesn't matter in the long run if you don't progress as fast as you think you're going, because it's not about competition. It's not about, oh man, I see this brother, I see this sister, man, they so sharp, they're getting on all of it. I can't get it like them. That's the ego. That's why you have to study yourself. So that was pretty much what we was building on. At least that part of it we was building on. We touched on other things as well.
Islam, well, that's it's simple, but it's deep. Simplicity of the divine. They say, it's so simple that a babe could get it, but it'll baffle a genius. So, yeah, man. I just see beauty in the whole demonstration, that we call life. And like you said, just to be aware is to be, to be aware, and to be aware is to be alive. So it's like you said, us recognizing our faults, and then kind of, we share how we feel to see if others are, just to get confirmation, that we're not the only ones that go through those type of things. And kind of even I wasn't able to make it tonight, but I believe we were still together in spirit, because my whole demonstration all week has been on the soul, and because that's what we dealing with is the soul. And and I believe there in the New Testament, Jesus mentioned something along the lines that they have yet to possess their souls. You know what I mean? So, but if we go back to the circle 7, it says the gifts of the understanding are the treasures of Allah, And then, you know, when he's speaking with the parable with the farmer, it says, but, and, you know, they say beneath the rocky soil are carnal things. And those carnal things are what debased us to begin with. But beneath the rocky soil of carnal things lies treasures. So again, there goes the word treasures. So, you know, there's your reference point. So these treasures, again, they're coming from Allah. Beneath the rocky soil of carnal things, there lies treasures that no man can count. So, you know, and that just brings the idea that, you know, it's all a learning process and just really getting to know self. So in those three planes, you know, it's kind of sound like, you know, like three heavens, you know what I mean? So because if we think about it in a sense, he said he's gonna make the earth is his footstool. Well, that's what we walk on. We walk on the earth, you know, our feet are on the earth. So yeah, it's just a lot of things that come to mind, like chapter 1 in Genesis, for example. There's two creation stories there, and that just reminds me of as above, so below. And so again, to me, like, you know, once you become aware of the functions or the actions of the soul, then that to me allowed me to identify with the soul. And, you know, before that I couldn't. It just, you know, it, like I said, it's so simple, but it makes all the sense in the world. And it says that you know, Islam, I lost my train of thought for a second.
Islam. Yes, sir. You talking about the in general, I got you correct, like the simplicity of, like you said, you at one time couldn't
Islam.
grasp it. Yes,
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you using that grass, pull me back up. Just some side noise distracted me and took me off of my plane of thought for a second. However, yeah, it's just, you know, it's when he says it's not in, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes I get it mixed up. It's not in bones to think, and it's not in flesh to reason. And then, you know, just common sense. Ask you, where do you feel majority of yourself concentrated at? You know, and the answer is inside of your head. You know what I mean? And then if you think, like, just listen to, you know, the power of life and death lies within the tongue. So when you listen to, you know, what people say, like, pardon self, or, you know, excuse me, I was inside of my head. You don't say I was inside of my flesh or I was inside of my bones, you know, because everything is happening, you know, I guess you call it upstairs, right? So that helped me, like I said, on top of thinking, willing, and reasoning. Now that I know these are the actions of the soul, like I said again, I'm able to identify, you know. So it comes back to identity and, you know, nationality, again, being the order of the day. So yeah, just making those planes symmetrical, and again, understanding the functions of the soul, and understand where these thoughts are coming from, because the soul is what does the thinking. And, you know, if you understand, if we're listening to the soul, then again, you know what I'm saying, you know that it's not you because you're listening to it, you know what I mean? So you're listening to the soul, and when the soul does its thinking, it creates a state of mind. And it said the same sun that hardens the clay is the same sun that softens the wax, so it is the same soul that willeth contraries. You know, and that when the contraries is going against each other. So the higher self versus the lower self, or the positive versus the negative, or just, you know, the good thoughts versus the bad thoughts, the good angel versus the bad angel. Yeah. So Just
Yes, sir.
being able to know that and identify with it. Now I know like what I'm dealing with, and then just to know that you're the one listening to the soul. You know what I mean? That just puts you on an even higher plane if you think about it. So yeah, like KRS-One gives I believe he gives a great demonstration speaking about the fifth dimension, and that kind of helped me identify with the soul, because I said, hey, I didn't use my physical lips. If I say a word inside of my head like hope, I didn't use my physical lips to say hope. I didn't use my physical ears to say hope. And if I didn't use my physical lips, then that means, there was not really a sound vibration being given off, so my ears didn't pick nothing up. So, and then if I think about a memory that I can see clear as day inside of my head, then I'm not using my physical eyes. So therefore, I didn't use anything physical to create that experience. It all happened from the inside. And again, there was nothing of the flesh being used. So to me, that is the plane of soul, and then I guess we could, that's just me taking a shot at it, as far as like, how some people say, they identify with the third heaven, certain types of ways, but yeah, Islam.
Islam.
Other
Islam.
than that, yeah. So
Absolutely, Mo. That you right on it with that one, Mo. Because speaking of that video, I seen it too. With KRS-One, we spoke about that. How you can he gave that test about the word. You know what I'm saying? How you could see the word without using your eyes. You can hear the sounds without actually using your ears. Everything starts from within, in the essence. And if you look at it from that with chapter 1, it makes all the sense that this body is merely a vehicle that you are in. You know what I'm saying? That's where the context of the avatar. You know what I'm saying? That particular vehicle that you simply use to function on this plane. That's literally what it's for. It's just to serve a certain purpose. Like we went over chapter 12 about this story about Jesus seeing the toilers, giving the keys of the key to happiness, how to attain happiness, how heaven is a state of mind, and all of that. And you realize that the word work, the toil, right? Toil, I gave the lesson that toil has another word for it that has a legal term. Toil, the synonym of toil is work. And work is actually a legal term, which means the exertion, to exert oneself for a purpose. That's literally the legal meaning of the word work, to exert oneself for a purpose. And it says it could be physical or mental or a combination thereof. So mental exertion is work. You feel what I'm saying? Not only physical, it ain't just the physical labor. Mental exertion is work, but it's for the attainment of a specific thing other than recreation and amusement. You feel what I'm saying? So what I mean by this is that this body has to do work. Your soul has to do work. That whole chapter 1 is about the work of the body and the soul. Working on the plane of things manifest, and working on the plane of soul. That's work you have to do. And if you recognize that the work is for a purpose and to attain something, it goes back to attaining, your place back with Allah, the oneness. You know what I'm saying? Because man himself is not the body or the soul. He's a spirit and a part of Allah. So now, as you mentioned, like it says in chapter 36 of Know Thyself, wherefore is consciousness reposed on thee alone, and whence is it derived to thee? right? Where do you get it from? And where does it go? You know what I'm saying? And it goes on to say, it is not in flesh to think, it is not in bones to reason. The lion knoweth not that the worm shall eat him, the ox perceiveth not that he is fed for slaughter. Right? Something is added to thee unlike what thou seest. Something informs thy clay higher than all is the object of thy senses. Behold, what is it? Of course, we know that soul, right? So, and in the soul of man on page, chapter 38, and I'm just going to read a few verses, the first few verses on that. Islam, I just got Sister Nessel asking to speak on the third heaven. We're going to definitely speak on the third heaven. Give me one moment. Make sure I'm in the room, right? I'm in the room. I'm just making sure. Tap back in. Here we go. Okay. So, in terms of, I'm just going to read the first few verses. So, the blessing, it says, the blessing, O man, of thy external part is health, vigor, and proportion. The greatest of these is health. What health is to the body, even that is honesty to the soul. That thou has a soul is all of knowledge, the most certain of all truths, the most plain unto thee. Be meek, be grateful for it. Seek not to know it perfectly, it is unscrutable. Thinking, understanding, reasoning, willing, call not these the soul. They are its actions, but they are not its essence. Raise it not too high, that thou be not despised, but be not thou like unto those who fall by climbing, neither debase it to the sense of brutes, nor be like thou to the horse and the mule, in whom there is no understanding. Search it by its faculties, know it by its virtue. They are more in number than the hairs of thy head. The stars of heaven are not to be counted with them. So I just wanted to give that, to give the context of what it is to gain an understanding of the soul. It is that from which we derive these faculties of understanding and in reasoning. You got what I'm saying? Like what you mentioned about. And yet, we can't know it perfectly. We're not supposed to know it perfectly. We're just supposed to have the experience. You know what I'm saying? And we will always learn more through the experience. You know what I'm saying? It's not that you won't learn, but it's okay if you don't know it perfectly. You don't have to know everything about, the soul and all this other stuff, because you're supposed to, it's you. You know what I'm saying? Or I should say it's part of you. You know what I'm saying? And in knowing and studying yourself, yourselves, what you come to do is you come to appreciate it for what it is. And so I want to kind of just go into this aspect of the third heaven just a little bit, and because I want to refer to an actual writing that one moment, to this writing that I came across and I shared with some Moors. Let's see if I can pull it up. This is it right here. So, Brother Leos, you ever heard of Max Heindel?
Islam, I have not.
Okay. Max Heindel he's a Rosicrucian and an astrologer, right? So he actually wrote quite a few, he's a mystic, he wrote quite a few writings. But this particular writing he wrote is called The Third Heaven. So I'm going to read portions of this. So it says here, in the third heaven, most people have very little consciousness for reasons explained in connection with the region of abstract thought. for there the third heaven is located. It is therefore more of a place of waiting where the spirit rests between the time where it labors in the second heaven, have been completed, and the time when it again experiences the desire for rebirth. Now, keep in mind as I read this that our lessons says that heaven is not a place of meets of bounds; it's a state of mind. So if you replace place with state of mind, then it will make more sense. So I'm just going to keep on going. It says, but from this realm, inventors bring down their original ideas. There, the philanthropist obtains the clearest vision of how to realize his utopian dreams, and the spiritual aspirations of a saintly minded are given new impetus. In time, the desires of the spirit for further experiences draw it back to rebirth, and the great celestial beings who are known in the Christian religion as recording angels assist the spirit to come to birth in the place best suited to give it the experience necessary further to unfold its powers and possibilities. Now I want to stop there. I want to put that and juxtapose that with what we just read in chapter 1, right? So let's go back to chapter 1. In chapter 1 of the Moorish Holy Quran, it says, I'm going to stop where it says he must suffer. Yea, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold, but let him know that the cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and the spirit of the mighty Allah who rule the solar stars are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. So these celestial beings, these seraphim and cherubim, right, that rule these stations are agents, if you will, to assist you as spirit man to go to the next, to go through these realms. You catch what I'm saying? What we call in birth and death is really just transitioning, because your physical birth, time never was when man was not. There, you know what I'm saying? In life, a man at any time began, a time would come when they would end. So there was never a time when you didn't exist. So what you call birth, rebirth, and death are merely transitions of stages that you go through, right? So if you're going through these stages, what they're calling as a rebirth is just another transitioning into either back into a particular state or into a new state. You know what I'm saying? And death, same thing with death. Man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah. And while Allah lives, man cannot die. Right? There is no death for man. You know what I'm saying? It's just a cut of the cord that frees you from the bounds of this physical plane going on, and then you can do your work on this plane of soul and so on and so forth. So I wanted to kind of put that in the context of in terms of the third heaven, and there's more I can speak on, but I'm going to read the rest of this page. It's not long, but I just want to kind of give context in this statement about the third heaven. It goes on to say this: we have all been here many times and in different families. So that's the incarnation aspect of things. And we have had relations of varying nature with many different people, and usually there are several families among whom we seek re-embodiment to work out our self-generated destiny and reap what we have sown in our former lives. Now, what I want to say in addition to that is that we have all heard the term kindred spirits, right? And you kindred spirits, like you may be of a totally different, I should say, a totally different family, a totally different background, and you meet a person, it's like, man, I feel like we know each other. could be the first time. Well, that is because your spirit is beyond time and space. So in life, of course, we know life is all life is bound by one cord. So there has been interactions that me and you, as well as you and others, have had prior to this incarnation. You know what I'm saying? And maybe at the same time in another dimension. That gets into the multiverse aspect as well, which is a whole nother conversation. But once you recognize that time never was when man was not, then it's not strange to recognize that, you know what? This ain't, I wasn't just here, 20, 30, 40, 50 years operating in this plane. You see what I'm saying? There's been other situations. That's why there may be certain people you just, oh man, we just click. You follow what I'm saying? And then there's other people where you may have, it's oil and water. Oil and water doesn't mix. Well, that's because on a cosmic level, on an esoteric level, you're dealing with interactions that may have taken place in another higher realm. I should say in another place and space of time. Because again, time never was when man was not. We're dealing with the reality that we're constantly locked into a linear time calendar to make it seem that all of our experiences start with birth and end with death, when that's not the case. And as you get more deeper into these esoteric lessons and studies, you recognize that that's the case. You recognize that, it's not a situation where I'm just having experiences by myself, for myself. You know what I'm saying? There's an interconnectedness that we have. Like, we talked about the other day about the quantum physics and all of that. You can have multiple experiences going on at the same time. And even in the dream world, it kind of speaks to that if you're keen to that. You know what I'm saying? If you're keen to that aspect of your experiences in that realm, there are certain writings, scriptural writings, religious writings that say this physical life is a dream. That this whole life is just one dream. You feel what I'm saying? So if this life is a dream, and then they imply that when this ends, then you wake up. Right? When we get into this information and consciousness, of finding this information, we say, oh, okay, we being conscious. Some people say we're woke. All right, then that implies that you were asleep. So what is the sleep? Where they say sleep is the cousin of death or what have you. That sleep entails not the lack of activity, but the per se, as far as physical activity, because even when you sleep, your heart is beating. But it's the lack of meaningful activity or activity that connects you with life. In other words, interfacing with life in all aspects, because you just sleep. You know what I'm saying? So likewise, when you see about that and you get back into chapter 1 in circle 7, now you understand that transitioning, taking off the garb of flesh, then operating in this plane of soul, then taking it to this, the spirit plane, just to keep it simple, because we know those are general descriptions to deal with the multi dimensions and layers of our existence. Then you recognize, okay, now, you becoming more aware. You become spiritually, mentally, otherwise. So that awareness becomes the awakening. And you now operate in a whole new world. You know what I'm saying? And you can do that while physically here. Because like you mentioned, brother, that you can be in your own head. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you can operate from the mind and create your own environment where certain stuff doesn't affect you the way other things do. You're not caught up in the game, Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? You're not caught up into the Grammys. You're not caught up, because that's not your world. You know, as the Christians say, be in the world but not of it. You're not caught up in that. You are now at this space where you have now entered into a new world, whether self-created or was already generated that you just entered into. You know what I'm saying? You actually can do that. So when you look at, to answer the question in the chat about the third heaven, right? The third heaven being the different states of mind. That's a third state of mind. You know what I'm saying? That's a third state of mind raising up. There's more than there's more than three heavens, or there's more than three states of minds that we can ascend to. But that third one is key, because within that third heaven, as many people speak about, different writers talk about, that is kind of the place where you get to see the different aspects of it. Based on my studies, you get to see the different aspects of those spiritual entities that interplay with you, as we talked about in the chapter about, you know, whether you use the term cherubim, seraphim, angels, ancestors, whatever terms you want to use, you know, based on your studies, it still deals with that in that context. And in the Moorish questionnaire, the question is asked, what was it? About the name. Name cannot be used only by the executive rulers of the AC of the MST of A. What are the words of the AC of the MST of A? Add-up chamber of the Moorish Science Temple of America, third heaven. So it says a term in that being executive rulers. So if they are rulers of a chamber, if you will, right? And they call that the add-up chamber. The word add-up simply means skilled, from the Latin word adeptus, meaning skilled. So if you have that chamber, that realm, which is your state of mind, that third heaven, then if there's an executive rulers of that, then there are those who are not. There's those who enter it, but they're not rulers of it. They're subject to it. And subject being in the context of, you know, determined of, just like anything, when you come into any space, you learn. If you were to go to a job, you know, unless you were hired as a manager, you wouldn't start as a manager. You would start from a certain level and then raise up. So that's just me giving my measure on the aspect of the third heaven. So I didn't know if you wanted to add on to that.
Islam. Yeah, that was a great demonstration. You know, it was very clear too. So, yeah, and to add on, I believe that's why, you know, sometimes we'll have those experiences without understanding where that information is coming from. And because, like, sometimes you just know things before you know them. And I say that from experience, like, just with the resurrection book. Like, I was never, like, taught this by somebody else. You see what I'm saying? Certain parts in that book, I was never taught by nobody else. I was taught by Allah. That revelation came straight from Allah, whereas Allah, of course, you know, the throne, you know. So I feel like, you know, that we experience the third heaven, even if we don't understand, you know, exactly what it is and what's going on. But again, that information helps us identify with it. So we, you know, I just feel like being able to identify what it is, you know, allows us to learn how to use it, because, you know, the tools in the workshop of the mind where we make the character symmetrical, right? Like this, it sounds a lot easier than what it is, because again, that foe is It's not a weak one, you know. That's why it's testing you to see if you're going to be the strength of Allah made manifest. However, just from experience, you know, the soul will line certain events up, you know, to make it appear as if something else is taking place. But if we think about what the lower self breeds, then we can always identify with the information that's being presented to us. And although, you know, the information being presented to us, you know, it's still up to us to remain the truth, you know. And I was able to do this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that you know I got from Allah and the Prophet, and you know everyone else who was assisted, but you know just giving honors, you know, this allowed me to see the soul kind of like, you know, the tool of the compass. That's just how I see it. I don't know why I see the soul as a circle, but that's how I see it. And again, the spirit is clothed in soul. So you know how I say, "Vaunt not thy body, because it was first formed, nor thy brain, for therein thy soul resided. Is not the master of the house more honorable than his walls?" You know, so master of the house to me is that holy breath. Yeah. So, you know, and as far as the third heaven as well, like, you know, this is, you know, heaven and hell is a state of mind. So I feel like when we discipline ourselves to a certain degree, then, you know, a lot of that, again, it's those treasures that are being made known to us. And like you said, it's a higher self and lower self, and a higher self is Allah and man, you know. So, and wisdom is the consciousness that man is all, and we know that all is Allah. So, I mean, that really says a lot. And I think that we was taught to, you know, put blame on things like, you know, that scapegoat, right? So instead of taking responsibility for our actions and behaviors, but like, again, like I said, it sounds easier than what it is, but you know, that's why the practice, you know, helps you develop the strength. And it's through that practice of those, you know, those same principles, and just wanting for yourself, wanting for humanity what you want for yourself, you know. I feel like, you know, it allows you to receive the message, and it, you know, the soul being the line that connects the divinity to the matter. I seen this video once, and it was saying, you know, the creator became the creation it created in order to experience that which it created. And then it says, you know, what's the job of the many? The job of the many is something along the lines like to get back to the one. You know, that's one of my. It was a Moor demonstration. I can't remember his name, but it's one of my favorites. And that lets me, and that, like I said, that reminds me of the line connecting divinity to matter. So I feel like, you know, the body of flesh is allowing, you know, is whatever we do with this flesh. I feel like the soul, that's what's allowing that spirit to feel, you know, and enjoy, you know, its creation. So, and then you think about the slowing down of those vibrations, the soul plane and the plane of things made manifest. So I just look at it like something trickling down, you know. And when the spirit was clothed in soul, you know, spirit meaning breath, that goes back to like kind of like Genesis, you know, he breathed in his nostrils and man became a living soul. And since the soul had the ability to create these functions, I mean, you know, it had the ability to, you know, create, then, you know, I think it was through our thoughts, again, those carnal words, thoughts, and deeds that you know, cause us to debase ourselves. But just knowing these things, being aware of these things, and knowing that you can't be fully good nor you know, fully bad and to laugh at his calamities. Just be true to yourself, because what health is to the body, so is honesty to the soul. So, yeah, to me, hey, like I said, sometimes I feel like hey, you already in the third heaven. Sometimes, you might not understand it. But again, it's through that practice and just really being with yourself, getting to know yourself, getting to know the sciences that was given to us. Because again, like you said, it's inscrutable, it's incomprehensible, and it remains perfect even in the bosom of a fool. And we was instructed to remember the charge that was given to us. He ain't wake us up for no reason, you know what I mean? So we ain't wake up for no reason. Yeah. And with that, I yield the floor is Lamb.
Slim, indeed, brother. You made a statement earlier that I thought was, you dropped a lot, but one thing in particular that I wanted to touch on, and to the importance of that, you said that you think of the soul as a circle. And it's interesting you say that, because the symbol of the soul, or one of the old symbols that was used for the soul, specifically the context of what they call the world soul, which is really the logos, right, is the circle with the dot in the center. You know what I'm saying? The symbol of a newborn world soul. So, and there's different, writings of it that speak to that, as far as Gnostic teachings and things of that nature. But the context of it comes even way before that, and I want to emphasize that term, is really a latter term for something that we already had recognized, and that is the aspect that you operate as the center of your universe, in the context of, like, you talk about your soul. When you deal with the soul, you are always, when you're in tune with your soul, for those of us who go through this, you're always intuitive. You're always operating from a sense of within to observe out. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it's not reverse. It's not something where something outside has to move you. More so is what's within you moves you outward. In other words, you listen to your soul, to put it in that context. You listening to your soul, you moving with your soul. You may hear some people say, like I used to hear, Bobby Hemmett said, the spirit, the spirit told me. You may even hear old, our elders in Christianity be like, the spirit moved me. It's a recognizing of the internal you, the essence of you being the part that moves outward and can affect everything around you. You know what I'm saying? Being in tune with your soul from that aspect, that's truly one of the things that we've been taught. We are learning again. We're learning this again for those of us who are on this path, to be able to speak to that, to be able to manifest these lessons and really move with that. Because once you move with the soul, truly be in tune with that, you'll find that the soul won't lead you wrong. It's like one of my teachers, the brother Corbett Bay, who I have the honor of learning certain things from him, like martial arts. He's very adamant about the soul. You know what I'm saying? On a real intimate level, in knowing that you have to learn to let go of the ego in a lot of ways. In other words, you have to let go of the context of, how can I say it? it's going to be hard for me to explain it, but he uses martial arts to explain this. He uses a term. He said, "You don't fight, you unite." And by that he means, and he would show me certain moves, and he said, and he would demonstrate how you don't have to use muscle, you don't have to use force, you just go with a flow. You know what I'm saying? And that flow that operates is, as he's told me, is in essence, in its truest sense, emanates from the soul. You catch what I'm saying? In other words, that essence of you of a higher vibration that moves more in harmony with life, and you can move in that aspect. And if you trust it, you know what I'm saying? If you put your trust in and be in tune with it, because to trust it is to be in tune with it. You know, that's why that saying is, what health is to the body, honesty is to the soul. Because if you're being honest, you're being true to yourself. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to put on a front. You ain't got to put on an act. You're being true to yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're able to move in such a way where you can do things that it would seem supernatural in a lot of ways, and I've seen him demonstrate that. But he would always drive that home. Like he's real big on that chapter about the soul of man. He's real big on that because he understands as you get in tune with yourself. And this is a brother an elder who like he'll spend days upon weeks meditating. You know what I'm saying? He's really recluse, you know what I'm saying? And really disciplined. And the insights that he has, no matter what we do, he's going to go back. He's going to go back to the soul. He's going to tell you, look, Mo, it's about the soul. It's about the soul. And that just speaks to, he had to go through the experience. Like I mentioned earlier, like you can't, it says in that chapter, you can't know it. Don't seek to know it perfectly, right? You just have to go through the experience. You just have to experience it. And in your experience, you are learning it perfectly in that way. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you have to be that. It's not about it intellectualizing it. That only takes you so far. And he would also drive that home to me as well. He said, basically, certain things you just got to do it. You can't just read it. You got to do it. You got to be that. You have to be the message. So we're constantly, on this path to apply that which we learn to perfect ourselves. So, I just wanted to just kind of build on that, and I definitely appreciate, you brother for getting on this, jumping on this. Shout out to my brother Mister. He jumped on, listening in. The sister Anessa, she had jumped on. I think she just got off. But I appreciate everyone on this. And we can do this again at another time. Appreciate you.
Islam. Before you go, can I say one quick thing?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to because it came back to mind. Like I said, like you were speaking about a third heaven and how we just like this is not our first time, and things of that nature, and having already experienced things, already knowing things, and just again Allah. And so and before things were made, as before I had that one-on-one dealing with Allah, there's something I asked for, and I asked for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding like King Solomon. This is before I had the understanding that I have now. But if you hear what I'm praying for, that's the same thing that the resurrection book says. If we pray, this is what you should pray for: was knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. See, this, and I did that, and I did that way before I ever had the resurrection. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to share that, and Yeah, I yield the floor, Moses. I think it was a great build, and I appreciate it. Islam.
Islam, definitely appreciate you, brother. I appreciate those words. Yeah, it speaks to the journey that we on, man, and we continue on it. So definitely appreciate you. Honest to everybody on the meeting, and we're gonna do this again. So till next time, peace, y'all.
Peace.